Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Jeremiah, we are having a webinar. Hope you're ready. Another Ask Us Anything. I hope you're ready. These Ask Us Anythings are the whole concept is that there's a little more interaction. We do, of course, have some content prepared for you regarding best practices, but the nature of it, we chose this as an Ask Us Anything format specifically because it really requires that sort of interaction. This was I would consider this webinar in the series of us sitting around going, what is something that we seem to be doing over and over again in tech support, and it's this people going, oh, well, how would you recommend I host my Land Effects folder, and how would you recommend we approach this, and how do you recommend this? And we got plenty of recommendations. We go, you know what? Let's do it in a webinar, but it entails some back and forth at times because it's, well, how many people are in your office? Well, what sort of setup do you have? Well, what sort of work do you do? There can be some qualifying questions. And so this format lets you chime in with your particular situation and what we might recommend about that. And meanwhile, we have some really good recommendations for you on how to install Land Effects, how to learn it, how to operate it, all just, our absolute recommended methodologies for all the above. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to show it to everybody. Yay! They're going to be so happy when you play it for them over and over again, won't they? And of course, that interaction hinges on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I'd recommend you click it now. That stands for questions and answers, but that's going to be the best way for you to type in your situations, your questions, that we'll be able to answer live, as well as even when we type the answers to you. That'll show up in the little Q&A box. So it makes a great companion, even if you're not one of the ones contributing with questions and such, you can at least see the answers that we type to other people and other questions. So should be fun. I think I've rambled for enough. I think it's time for Jesse to start taking this away.
Thank you for that intro, Jer. And good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Jesse with Land Effects here. I'm an irrigation specialist. I wanted to start by defining what a best practice is. And this is a definition that came to me while I was developing the content for this presentation today. And that's a methodology or technique of doing something that, through experience, is known to yield the most optimal results. And that came to me and it felt like a proper definition of what a best practice is. Our outline for today, we're going to be talking about best practices regarding installation and setup of the software, management of the software, and using the software. Starting with the installation and setup of the software, our best practice is to use Land Effects Cloud Data and to host the Land Effects folder to install Land Effects on a shared online folder. Why Cloud Data? Cloud Data with Land Effects isn't Land Effects providing you cloud storage. Instead, we host, our servers host and back up your most critical data. What is that data? That data is your project and preference set data. So all of that information that you entered into our software for your project, all of that pricing, all of those notes, all of those quantities, all of that we host and backup for you, and it's instantaneously. You can restore and access that data instantly. That data is connected to your support ID, which is associated with your account here at Land Effects. And when you connect your software installation to that support ID and you are using cloud data, you instantly see your company's, your Land Effects accounts data pool instantaneously. And it guarantees all users to view the same data because you're accessing that data pool through the support ID. If you have that support ID and you're configured for cloud data, you get to see the exact same data. Cloud data also enables you to use a shared online folder. We'll discuss why that's important. And cloud data also allows for real-time license sharing rather than when Land Effects is installed on a local server, that local server holds all of the licenses tied to a Land Effects account. When you're cloud data, it's real-time license sharing. And It's free. It's included in the fees that you already pay for your LandFX subscription. Whatever tools from us you use, whether you're an FX CAD and an FX irrigation user, or you just have several FX planting licenses, it's free. Shared online folder. Why? This is an instant backup of your LandFX folder. What's in your LandFX folder? That's your detail library. That's your block library. That's your image library for any images that you tie into LandFX. When you use a shared online folder, it's already backed up to the cloud service that you're using to host it. Through LandFX, like when you're asked to update the software, you are also asked if you can back up project data as well. If you choose to back up your project data, it backs up into your LandFX folder. If you're hosting the LandFX folder on a shared online folder, it's just an immediate secondary backup to the backup that you just enacted. A shared online folder is accessible from anywhere with internet, and the combination of cloud data and a shared online folder really simplifies onboarding new users. If you're seeing talent in another part of the country or another part of the world and they want to come work for you, but they can't relocate to you immediately, cloud data and a shared online folder allows you to get them working while still being located wherever it is that they are. Um, Shared online folders are much cheaper and much easier to maintain than servers. As I mentioned, I'm an irrigation specialist. I'm a former LandFX user, well, obviously still a LandFX user too, LandFX enthusiast. I have a background in landscape architecture. The whole server world, that gives me pause. Like I'm hesitant to enter into that. I feel like I could maintain a shared online folder for a small team or a small office. An actual server, absolutely not. But I could maintain a shared online folder. And of course, our recommended services for those are Google Drive, Dropbox, and Ignite. What you're going to do with those best practices for the installation and the setup is you're then going to document it. And you're going to document absolutely everything regarding your installation and setup of the software. You're going to document all of your CAD platform serial numbers, whether those are AutoCAD, Civil, or you're using our platform FXCAD. You're going to document which machines are using what serial numbers. Staff equipment assignments. You're going to document your LandFX install type, even if it's just as simple as marking down if you're aware that you're installed for cloud or local data. You're going to document your server name and any details regarding it, the location of the LandFX folder, what drive it's on, whether it's on a server, whether it's hosted on a shared online folder, what drive is that shared online folder using? You're going to document the location of the LandFX folder and the name of your shared online folder service, plus the login information. That needs to be documented as well. Within the LandFX portal is a license manager. That license manager is only as accurate as users allow it to be. That's why it's really important to communicate any install information with LandFX. And this should certainly be handled by a point person, someone consistent, someone trusted, someone who understands what's going on. Head of IT, a CAD manager, a managing principal, someone like that. Being proactive with that communication, communicating the install information with LandFX equals smooth work for us and you. It allows us and yourself to gauge the appropriate amount of licenses that you need to complete your work. It allows us and yourself to address serial number mix-ups, address activation errors. It simplifies assigning serial numbers to employees, and it requires for us to provide that accuracy to you and that organization to you, it does require some manual work on our end, which is where the communication part comes in. So that communication to us is going to equal accuracy in regards to your installs. All right, and that concludes the first little section. Do we have any questions so far that need to be addressed on those slides?
We are getting some fantastic questions.
Awesome.
They don't quite match up with where you are now. We'll bring
Got
them
it.
up later, but keep these great questions coming. These are fantastic.
Got it. Thank you for those questions, everyone. We really appreciate it. Moving into best practices regarding management of the software. Best practice, pay your renewals on time. Missing a renewal means losing service. LandFX is an annual subscription. What does that mean? You're going to be billed annually. You need to plan for and look out for paying for LandFX one time a year. We use QuickBooks to send invoices, and invoices are sent at a minimum 30 days prior to your support date. So your support date is when you activate the software, when you enter in a support ID, and that support date gets kicked back to you. The support date is also available for you to review from your portal account. We send out a QuickBooks invoice at a minimum 30 days prior to your support date. We send them the first week of the month of whatever month we're going to send the invoices out from. The accounts payable contact, excuse me, with your LandFX account here is who receives the invoice. That ties back into the proactive communication regarding the installs and everything, because that accounts payable needs to be someone who works at the company, whose email address is updated, who receives emails. There's no firewalls or anything blocking our emails to that email address. You don't need a QuickBooks account to pay invoices, our QuickBooks invoices. We accept bank transfers and credit cards. We really recommend setting a calendar date reminder. Whatever your support date is, maybe 45 days ahead of that, start setting regular reminders. We do also have an in-software reminder that will notify users that that their account is going to be expiring. That starts at 7 days. I think that's pushing it. Set some calendar reminders outside of your support date. A best practice, regular backups, using LandFX cloud data and hosting the LandFX folder on a shared online folder. You're already taking care of some of your backups. We recommend the 3-2-1 rule, and that's 3 copies of data, 2 of the same format, 1 kept offsite. Your LandFX cloud data, already a copy and a backup of your project and preference set data. Your shared online folder, that's already a copy and a backup of your detail library, your block library, etc. If you back up that project data to your LandFX folder also, and then once a week, you take that shared online folder and you back that up to another drive and you hold that offsite, you're done. You are good to go. You're squared away. And what I think is important to notate here about the whole backup process and everything is that when you're letting the LandFX servers host the project and preference set data, when you're using our cloud data, and when you're letting someone like Google Drive, like Google in general, and Dropbox host your LandFX folder, you're letting those companies with that infrastructure do that for you. Dropbox is, their bread and butter, their flagship product is cloud storage. Let them do that for you. Document everything. Document all of your standards. Document your text styles, your dim styles, your multi-leader styles, your layer naming standards. We are enabling the convenience of that with our print preferences tool, which has just been accelerating lately. We already have print preferences, already has a bunch of different options under its belt. And we've got more on the way, and that's gonna just provide our users with a really easy tool to document these standards. But more importantly, yes, document your own personal standards if you have them. Document those. Document what you change in LandFX, either to match what you change for good, for whatever reason. If you make a change in LandFX, document it. It's really important for the future of your team, of your company, of your mission, of your office, whatever, of yourself, to be able to look back and see what the change was made. And it doesn't help to also put in a little why in there, you know? That way, someone in the future, whether yourself or someone else, can look back and understand what was changed, where it was changed, and why. And you're going to want to also document all of your file organization standards, your internal file structure, your file naming structure, your block naming structure, um, why your folders are set up to be what they are, all of that. You want to make sure all of that is down on paper, somewhere for people to review, somewhere for people to look back on, you know, remind yourselves of the context of why things were done the way that they were. Um, Speaking with my team and, you know, chatting about what it was like developing LandFX's standards, flexibility is going to be best. Standards that allow for growth and expansion, that kind of flexibility. Keep the software updated. That is absolutely a best practice regarding managing the software. We love fixing bugs. We love improving everything. And we oftentimes will wait a week max if it makes sense to release a bug fix, if not a few hours after we're notified of the bug. So keep the software updated. And we review, or excuse me, we post very detailed update history to our website because it's both an internal tool for ourselves, but it's for you too to go back and review at any time. And we really recommend just checking out that update history, looking at it, what was changed, what was done, and then ask us, hey, what does this mean? Why did you do this? How can we see this impacting us? Um, Communicate proactively with account relations. We need to know about staff changes. We need to know about username changes. We need to know about mergings, email changes, all of that. Communicate proactively with us, please. Regarding tech support, December just passed. Lots of deadlines came in, lots of pushes, lots of pinch points. I heard several people say, you know, we've been dealing with this for a month, we've been dealing with this for a mile now, or for a while now, but we've got a big deadline and it's really causing us issues. Don't do that. We love to solve problems. I love problem solving myself. My team loves problem solving. Bring us your problems as they happen. Sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is very detailed. It's really fun. It's a little breath of fresh air. It's a little news piece that's positive and fun and entertaining. Um, but it really allows you to watch content as it comes out. We put advertisements for, you know, our feature releases in there. We put information about upcoming webinars in there, but we also put direct links to like our power tips and other things in our newsletters. We have a lot of content, and if you watch it as it comes out, it makes it a lot more palatable. It makes it a lot easier to digest. Um, and stay on top of the new features and updates. Assign a point person, maybe a rotating point person, or just assign a single point person to thoroughly review the newsletter, and understand major updates. And that could just be as simple as like, hey guys, I saw that there's some really big updates to the plant schedule coming out. We use all of their planting tools and everything. I'm sure that's going to, you know, impact us. I'm gonna watch that for us, and I just wanted to let everyone know, everyone else to look out for any information that I'm going to be sharing about that in the future. All right, any questions here at this point?
Yes. Again, we continue to have a cavalcade of questions here.
Sweet.
So many good ones. Chris asking about the best way to archive data and clean up the project list, and gave him a couple options on that.
Awesome.
I'll rattle off a few of these questions and let you decide which ones you want to maybe address. There's
Okay, thank you.
that. John was asking about saving their details into the detail library. Emma was inquiring about MLeader callouts, and Thomas asked about annotative scaling and also layer organization, and hatches as well. So that's a smattering of questions there. Any of
Oh,
those
that's
sound
awesome,
good?
everyone. Thank you so much. Well, the next section we have here is regarding use of the software. And so I'll get through that. I won't rush it at all. There's a lot of really good information in there, but I'll get through that. And all of those questions seem like really good questions to follow the use of the software section.
I think absolutely. Good call.
All right, best practices for using the software. Use the default software. See its capabilities up front. And why were you interested in the software? Was it for speed? Was it for accuracy? Was it for error checking? Was it for automation? Was it all of the above? I hope so. Use it for what it was made as. When you see its capabilities up front, when you get used to the default software, I think it's much easier to appreciate and respect it and adopt it. A lot of friction happens when people are trying to learn new tools and new ways of doing things while also trying to mash in their former ways of doing things. And it just creates a lot of friction. And I think it sometimes unfortunately taints people's experience with land effects. And using the default software, seeing what our intention was and why we did those things is really important. Letting the software do its job. Once you feel comfortable with it, customize away. But I wouldn't be surprised if after you use the default software for, a year, you may have gotten really comfortable with doing it that way, and you might really like doing it the way that we designed. Um, on that, though, challenge yourself to use everything. I've been going to trade shows for a few years now, and one of my favorite interactions while I'm on the trade show floor demoing something is just someone going, "Oh, I always tell myself I gotta only be using like 10% of the software, like I always know that I'm not using enough of it." Challenge yourself to try and use everything. And while you're customizing, while you're changing things, if your standards don't mesh well, that's an opportunity to reevaluate. Again, why were you interested in the software? You were interested in our ability to provide a proper solution to something that you think is probably costing you too much time in your workflows. Let us do that for you. And so what can you forego? What can land effects or what does land effects already do? But also on that topic, could your standard improve our software or our industry? So as you're working to push your standards, to mesh land effects and maybe what you were doing before you purchased land effects, communicate that back to us. Either we already have a way to do that and maybe you just weren't finding it, or maybe that's going to spark a great conversation of how could we adopt that also. Appreciate the software though also. Make your purchase worth it. And I've just got a great list here of just different ways to appreciate the software through use. That it's just going to increase the positive experience of you using the software. And it's also going to allow you to leverage a lot of its true power. And that's a new land effects project for each real world job. And that even applies to test projects and everything, or practice projects and stuff. Make unique land effects projects for any unique situation requiring a project. But most importantly, a new land effects project for each real world job. Adopt preference sets to standards and clients. That's internal standards and to client standards, not individual projects. Preference sets ideally are a set it and forget it. Well, a set it, document it, and then maybe forget it. But you can go back and review your documentation whenever you want to. That's where the true power of preference sets comes from. Create project templates for commonly used data. That ties right back into the new land effects projects for real world jobs. No, getting a new job and being like, wow, this is going to be really similar to that job I did last year. That job's mostly over. I'm just going to reuse that same land effects project on this new job. If you find yourself continuously wanting to pull things from other land effects projects. And remember, we can import mostly everything from other land effects projects. That's when it's time to start making templates that you can either base your projects on, or you can just pull it from whenever you need it. I've got that palm planting template. I've got that hardscape template. I've got the Southern California water usage irrigation template. I've got all of those set up. I know where I can go find those commonly used things that I've already set up for myself in the past. Use the project organization tab. The project organization tab in your project list is a really cool feature. And it provides a great opportunity for you to reflect in your project structure within Land Effects. You can reflect that back to how you manage your projects in the real world. Do you categorize your real world projects by developer, by owner, by region, by architect, by engineer? Do you do it by year, by commercial projects, educational projects, residential projects, federal projects? The project organization tab allows you to either build that if you don't have a project organizational standard for yourself, or reflect your current one back into the Land Effects system and use our detail system. Our detail system, again, when you pair that with cloud data and a shared online folder, your your detail library is now accessible to any of your employees wherever they are in the world. Um, Within that, we really feel it's a best practice to use a project detail folder. And a project detail folder is a folder of details unique to that project. Now, it could end up just being all of your standard details. All of your standard details fit and worked for this project. They still got copied into the project detail folder, but they're still there. But the real power of the project detail folder is that when you add details from your Land Effects detail library or from our detail library to your project, they get copied into a separate folder. And that's really important because that way you know that if you need to make any changes to that detail, you're only making those changes to that instance of that detail in that project detail folder. And then just more best practices about appreciating the software. Explore our manufacturer connection. Our manufacturer connection is exponentially growing right now. And it's just full of really awesome products from really cool companies. Um, and that's the manufacturer connection is something I can certainly show off in the demonstration today. Same with our plant database. Explore our plant database. Have you ever wanted to filter 60,000 botanically accurate plants by their USDA hardiness zone? You can in our plant database. Have you ever wanted to filter 60,000 plants by their water usage? You can in our plant database. It's awesome. Best practice for learning the software, learn, learn, learn. We have over 1,800 individual web pages of documentation and knowledge base articles. We have over 360 short form videos. We are, I guess I might be the 350th webinar today, that's mind blowing. That's so amazing. And we have all of that free on our website for anyone, not just Land Effects users to access. It's just there. It's there for the industry. Um, and we're not done. We're far from done. I submitted 2 new documentation sections this week. It's growing constantly. Have fun with learning. Adopt an internal learning program. Assign a different person once a month. They research a new topic within Land Effects that they don't understand, but they think it could, benefit your current workflows. They improve upon something that they've been nervous themselves to get into. They spend the month teaching themselves about it, and then they, 30 minutes, you do a staff training, and that person that month, instructs back what it is that they learned about Land Effects or CAD or whatever that month. We have our documentation library covers Rhino, Revit, SketchUp, all sorts of things. We've got webinars on InDesign, Photoshop, So whatever it is that you want to learn yourself or you want your firm to learn, we probably have learning materials on it. Something that I'm really, really proud and grateful to have been asked to help work on is our LandFX trainer. Currently, right now, we have over 150 individual lessons regarding basic CAD usage. And when it says CAD basics, I promise you, as someone who works for a CAD design-based company, I learned things helping create the CAD basics trainer. It says basics, but it is great, great information, and it will make anyone a better user of CAD. And we've got the irrigation, planting, and the detail tools. Those are out right now as well. Coming 2025 are intermediate CAD lessons and a trainer covering our site tools. Long term, we've got advanced CAD, we've got a Revit trainer in the books, constant additions to everything that's already on this screen. They're not done. We're going to be adding to them for their life. And then I'm sure that we'll make trainers for our other plugins as well. Yeah, we're not stopping. And the trainer truly is for everyone. I mean, anyone who uses CAD and anyone who uses LandFX, um, you're going to learn something from the trainer. And if anything, it's just an opportunity to practice. And it's a great opportunity to practice. And concluding, learning, self-learning, use F1. Now, when you hover over any toolbars or any tools, excuse me, any tools, any ribbon buttons, anything like that within CAD, when you hover over it, you'll get a short flyout, you'll get a long flyout. And if you're reading those things and you're like, it's still not clicking, you can hit F1 and you'll be taken to the correct web page regarding that tool. And what's cool about when you use F1 on a LandFX tool is you're going to get taken to a web page that probably has a short form video on it explaining how to use the tool. It's going to have a very thorough documentation page on it. It's probably going to have a troubleshooting section linked to it already. So if you're experiencing an issue with a tool and you're like, okay, I need to troubleshoot this, where do I start? Hover your mouse over the tool, select F1, go to the page, go to the troubleshooting section for that tool. And then you'll also be linked to any webinars that mention the use of the tool. So much. Use F1. It's really powerful. I use it all the time when I need to remind myself about how things function. Best practice, standardized drawing cleanup. Let's make it clear, AutoCAD drawing corruption existed before LandFX existed. LandFX didn't invent drawing corruption. We didn't uncover drawing corruption. It was already there. It is there. Other disciplines using CAD products, they deal with drawing corruption. But LandFX is a unique adaptation of AutoCAD. And because of that, LandFX works best in files with minimal drawing corruption. But again, that applies to all CAD programs. If a civil engineer is working inside of an AutoCAD drawing file, and that drawing file has a fatal abortion, it is because drawing corruption built up so much inside of the file that it crashed. There was no LandFX involved. There was no LandFX tools used in there, but drawing corruption still caused that CAD file to crash. So what do we want to do? We want to set our environment up to work for the results you want. What are those results? As frictionless, as easy use of CAD as possible. I get that CAD is a very daunting experience for some people. The last thing you want in a stressful experience is a drawing that's crashing. It's a drawing that's losing its data, You don't want to get into that irrigation drawing that you spent hours teaching yourself how to use LandFX on, brushing up on your irrigation skills with at the same time, just to find out that your thousands of feet of lateral and mainline pipe have been reverted back into regular polylines and lines. And I really think that boils down to just a goal and attitude framework of setting up your CAD environment to work for the results that you want. And drawing corruption, drawing cleanup is a really important portion of that. Our tools and our documentation on it are there to help you develop your own standard. Um, Once you develop a standard of how your office is going to standardize drawing cleanup, document it, write it down, have it available. That way, when you get a new employee and you're onboarding them and you're teaching them about how things happen in your office, you can hand them something that says, and this is, these are our drawing cleanup procedures. What do we provide? Well, we've got the Nuke tool, which does anything drawing cleanup related, all of it, all at once. We've got Batchman, which allows you to apply Nuke to files in batch. It allows you to apply Nuke to entire folders of drawings. And we have all kinds of materials on the subject. And a best practice is interacting with us. We're real passionate people and we care about our job. And I hope if anything that I've been instilling in this presentation is that I care and I'm passionate and I am not the only person who cares and is passionate at Land Effects. And so your communication is going to be well received because that's what we want to do. But keep a running list of things to ask Land Effects. Like maybe you don't get around to sharing it with us for a few weeks or something, but at least you wrote it down and you remember what it is that you wanted to talk to us about, Watch our feature release webinars and give us feedback. Engage with us and others on our forum. We've got a great community forum. It's very active. I love that about it. And we'd love if you engaged on it more. Send examples. We love examples. I work with landscape architects. I work with irrigation designers. I work with people from the industry. But just because we're from the industry and or we're in the industry doesn't mean that we know everything about the different requirements that our users in the States are required to create and our users internationally are required to create and required to achieve. So please send us in those examples. That really provides that quality context for us to figure out how we can solve problems and what we can provide back to our users. Again, use the plant database, add and edit plant data, engage with our horticulturist. We have an amazing horticulturist on staff, and her job, one of the pieces of her job is to make sure that she stays on top of research regarding plants in the world, And if you want a horticulturist to do research into something, you have one at Land Effects, and you can engage with our horticulturist through the plant database. And I can show an example of that as well if need be, and help us inspire more manufacturers to partner with us. Our users are going to be, a lot of times that last little kick that really like helps a manufacturer be like, you know what, we want our products to be available to Land Effects users. And just to round this out, the section of the use of the software, I just wanted to end on a really fun note. And so here's highlights of user suggestions and inspirations and how they came to be in the software. Change plant, the ability to swap one plant and all of its associated data for another plant and all of its associated data, but leaving all place symbols as they are. That was a user suggested feature. The Land Effects admin folder, if you place any plot styles inside of there, our system correctly redistributes them to where they're supposed to go within CAD. That was a user suggested feature. Placeholder detail callouts. And oh, I love this one so much. Irrigation designers who are using Land Effects, who are also avid gamers, inspired our WASD keyboard commands for head placement. Isn't that awesome? The Nuke tool was inspired by a user suggestion. The irrigation verify tools were inspired by tech support tickets, realizing the need for verification tools. These first two, Revit Color Render and the Planting Mix Concept plant labels, those were both highly engaged users who shared with us their current methodologies of approaching these things and how they did them. And then also just sharing with us high levels of detail on what it is that they do in CAD, what they need to do, and why, how that relates back to their designs and their design process. So Revit Color Render and Planting Mix concept labels both came from those conversations with users. Plant outlines and the colored plant civil library and the logic behind it and just the automation of it and everything, those came from a current Land Effects staff member. Their conversations with the Land Effects staff years ago helped lead to those. And some of your favorite Land Effects staff were once the most vocal users. They were the people who were in the webinars asking those questions, filling up tech support with tickets and everything. Yeah, they're the fans. They're the original fans.
It's so true. Like we would sit around going, God, we need another usage tech. And we're like, that Amanda gal up in Canada is just so smart. And she's always asking us questions. We need to hire someone like her. And finally I go, why don't we just send her an email and see if she would mind working for us? And so it was so funny that way because if you could have been a fly on the wall during those conversations, it was just the way that we talked about those people was exactly as you put it. You're like Jake attended every single webinar over like a 4-year period, and we're like, this guy is amazing, And then it took another number of years before we were able to hire him, but it was just so funny that way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We all know and love Jake and Amanda too.
Absolutely.
And okay, everyone, that concludes at least just the presentation, the slide portion of today's webinar. Oh, what kind of questions and what kind of demonstrations can we get into?
Oh my. So many. First, a couple of people asking about, project organization and archiving projects. And so it'd be great to show the project organization tab and how projects can be organized even after the fact. So it doesn't have to be when creating the project. And showing that would be pretty cool. And because you were mentioning that a little bit, like you said, if she organized it by year, how she organized them. But yeah, showing that would be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, the project organization tab, that is going to be found on your FX admin ribbon. Far left ribbon tab button. Another best practice, we are using the ribbons and we are looking at these big buttons with this really legible text. And we're, like I was saying, hover over things. So project list, if I'm wondering what that is, if I want some more information on that, I can hit F1 and I'm taken to the documentation on Land Effects. And like I was saying, there's probably a video. And there's probably another section down here of related content. Looks like there isn't a troubleshooting section on here, so that's awesome. All right, FX admin, project list. All right, your project organization tab is this secondary tab over here. And I've got just for my own testing and just maintaining my own knowledge of our software, I've got just a mock-up in here and I use that for my own detail testing and other things like that. But that's a really simple way to approach this. Again, like I was saying, the commercial, residential, however it is that you approach that, to begin building in the project organization tab, it is as simple as selecting something and selecting new. And from here, you get to give it a category. And then our system will generate a code as that category is put in here. So what's something that we all work according to? That's a really easy way to remember when a project was started, when it came in, when the proposal was accepted, whatever, a year. So we can start building a project category with a year. And this code, it gets auto-generated, but that's customizable as well. And so we could give that a code of 25. And that relates back to the project organizational category of 2025. And I can say, okay. And then in here, I can say new again, and I can create a project or another folder for organizational purposes. And so I'm going to say, I'm going to create a project within here. This project is now immediately going to be held under the 2025 bucket. And so we can say one land effects, ask us anything. And now we can see in here that a detail folder, because I use the option within preferences to create a project, to create individual project detail folders per individual project, we can see my detail folder is already being set up here. And I've got that code that I applied to 2025 there. And I've got P, which stands for project, and I've got that code 25. So I already know that this detail folder, any details assigned to it are going to be held under a 2025 project. And I can say, okay. So we just made that project underneath that organizational tab, and that's how that's going to fall. Now, I believe if I would have began up here and said new, that's where I could have continued on making categories. Like if I want a category for my federal jobs, oh, that landed under the commercial, probably because I am. And so I can delete categories.
Oh no, it's
If
not. It's not. It wasn't under. It was. It was still under projects.
was
It
it
was
in the
just
correct
out.
place?
Yeah, it was just alphabetized there.
Oh, okay, awesome. That's even better. Yeah, our system is alphabetizing things, and I don't have a drop down next to it. That's what confused me. I don't have a drop down next to it because I don't have any projects held inside of there. So when I want to start adding new projects to this federal organization tab that I just put in here, I just select new and project 01 federal job.
And another thing you do is also have the unassigned projects below. And so you can also just be dragging and dropping projects from the unassigned up
You
into
can.
there.
If you started with projects, and one of these things that you're going to take away from the best practices webinar is like, okay, we should start using that project organization tab. But we just have like all of these unassigned projects, how do we get them into this project organization tab that we just built out? Like Jared was just mentioning, you can just drag and drop. But I
So
believe
yeah,
that was probably the
you would
main.
basically need to create the landing folder for it first. So you would go to kind of create the little folder and then drag it up there.
Right. So all those projects that you can see down there, those came from 2024. If I wanted to take all of my testing and practicing projects and everything that I made in 2024, I can just start dragging and dropping them up there. What?
It's going to want a different. It's going to want a folder is the only thing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so you'll just want in that case you just want to create a subfolder for 2024 for that particular project.
Oh, okay. Okay. How would I do that?
Just go ahead and right there, just go ahead and click new
Okay.
and just call it trainer. Yeah, because it's if for that trainer project. And then
Gotcha. Look
and
at
then
that.
boom, then you would drag that project in. You could drag him down a level to the
This one here.
boop. Assigned to 001. How did you do that? Well, quick show something different. There might be a little drag and drop issue
All right,
with that
everyone. So I've
001.
got some testing to do the rest of the Friday today. Checking back in on the project organization tab and how that
Yeah.
functions.
Yeah, there might be a little thing there, but that is the intention of it. We do have one other little change pending with that, I'm sure, so we'll clean up that and make that process a little better. You'll probably see an update for that very soon, but yeah, that is the idea. But yeah, as you have those organized and showing that the year folder, that's the real key. So if you get your projects organized by year, there's less of a need to archive them and get them out of there. So
Yeah,
if just
exactly.
simply all the 2024 projects, you just next thing you know, you aren't even looking at them because you only have 2025 expanded, and so on. Um, Another great question was regarding that color conversion process. I wasn't paying attention if you mentioned that, but that is definitely a best practice, is going through and converting the land effects layer colors into your office layer colors.
Oh, yeah. Is that what the question was regarding?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, everyone. That's going to be accessed through your preferences. We can select the general preferences button and right here, layers, layers. These are any land effects tools or objects or functions that require a layer. Um, and you'll notice that there's a block layers button below that. And that's because our blocks are just comprised of so many layers that it's much easier just to control the colors, the plotting properties that the block layers are going to use rather than going through and trying to adjust every layer that the land effects block library is going to use. Now, when you upload and add in your own blocks to the land effects block library, your layer structure can be that of your own standards, of course. But so here would be a one of our leader line weights. That would be probably a popular layer to adjust to match your own office standards. So you select the layer, you select edit, and you're given this great dialog box that you can interact with that allows you to change anything you want to change in here all the way from the name of the layer. So what that's going to look like in your layer properties manager as the land effects tool inserts this layer into the drawing. And you can change, of course, the index color, the transparency settings, some of this other layer property information. You can choose for it to be plot or non-plot. But most importantly, you get this section down here that allows you to put notes in. And this is one of the places where you'd want to document these changes. It's I think it would be really important to just to put in here. You're gonna let me type in this? Is this
Oh,
not something that you can type into?
no, those are just, yeah, those are our stock descriptions so that they are aware of what that,
Gotcha. Okay.
of what it
Okay. So
is.
then this would be something that you copy out of here and you put into. So as you're changing these things and as you're documenting the changes that you make to the default software, this would be something to copy out, paste into the document that you're creating, and then put in what your changes are. And it's as simple as that. So if we want this to plot with land effects doesn't use color 2, we want this to plot with color 3. We say OK. And as the land effects tools that create that L-ano leader 25 millimeter layer, it will now come in utilizing color 3 as it comes into the drawing. And it's just thinking right now. And there we go.
And then also note, there is the print preferences button right there. And after making those changes, you would want to, there's the block layers and then the layers as well. So you probably want to print both of those, which is pretty darn handy to have that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just rounding out that little demonstration there, the block layers dialog looks like this. If there is an asterisk, excuse me, next to the index color, that means that our blocks use that. And so if you want 3, or if you want index color 1 to actually be in your CTB, it's index color 5. You say OK. And now any land effects blocks that use color 1 as they're inserted upon this drawing or any drawing associated, remember we're making these changes to a preference set, any land effects project and any drawing associated with this preference set, color 1 will be changed to color 5.
Then we had a couple of people asking us about basically labeling and XREFs, and it's definitely on topic. It's not too much to show. Really, there is the preference in the planting preferences. Is really about the only thing to really kind of show while we kind of discuss it. But in planting preferences, people have seen it. There is that option at the bottom right where should those labels remain in model space or move to paper space, and we had a little bit of a back and forth with a couple of different people. Very, I would totally agree. Certain best practices for certain things is, all annotations are in a separate file. That is a school of thought for best practices. And they're wondering why they can't do that with plant labels. And the only possible thing with plant labels is you do have this option, but they're still in the same drawing. And they go, oh, I really want the labels in a separate file.
Mm.
And we're just not able to do that with planting for a number of reasons. The main one is that when people are labeling plants, they tend to see something that they want to edit. A classic example, you edit a ground cover area and you go, well, 180, what? And you edit it and you go, oh, because it's 6 inches on center or something, and you go, oh, well, heck, whoops, that was supposed to be 12 inches, right? Extremely common that when you're labeling, you're going to make a little edit like that. Well, you need to edit the actual design file, so it can't be an XREF, and that's the shortest answer for why we just cannot edit through a drawing layer or label through a drawing layer like that, because can't access the design file. So those plant labels are going to have to be in the file. So the one thing that we came up with is, well, when you have a really, really compact, jungle type design, you can at least label through a viewport, so at least pull those labels out into a blank space, because that's assuming, because you can't place a wipeout or something on a jungle because that's another part of the jungle. In other cases, you can usually place a wipeout, where there's a building or a road or something. But in those cases where you don't have the space. But meanwhile, people have noticed that ref note callouts can be used through an XREF
Yes.
layer. And that is because we can do that, because they do not have a group label with a window option, and it's not as common that people are labeling a ref note and go, oh no, that's not what I want something different. It's far less common. With planting, it just happens all the time. People will be editing while they're labeling. It just happens, and so that's just a nature of it. But it's a great conversation. Is I mean, I'm clearly a geek. I love these conversations on what is a best practice and what is a CAD standard. But as we get the ability to label a planting plan through an XREF, we absolutely would implement that. We would just need the ability to literally edit the XREF at the same time. And I don't have that ability yet through CAD.
And what about with labeling ref notes through an XREF if the users want to run verify callouts, or if the users want to make any other changes to the ref note items? Should they also be opening that file that actually contains the ref note objects and then making any changes in the ref note manager there, and then going back and adjusting labels, or can they make their changes to the ref note items while labeling the ref notes through an XREF?
For the most part, you can make the changes from that separate label file, and then when you open the design file of all the ref note items, then they will update. Then once you do that, but it is potentially an error-prone process. I would be worried. Like a classic example would be if labeling that same item somewhere else, on a different sheet, for instance, when I click on it through the XREF, it's still the old data. So if
Yeah.
it was something like if I'm just changing the number of it, it would just you're constantly going to have that problem where the data is different in the label file versus the design file. And so still, yeah, I would tend to, I mean, as the guy who wrote the code, I would open up the design file and make edits there just to do
Absolutely.
that first, before and then go and reload the XREF and then label it. So yeah, as long as you have them both open, I think that is certainly would be the best course of doing it, so that you can just bounce over to the design file, make your edits, then come back to the label file, reload the XREF, and then edit it there. But yeah, you still get to that point where you're like, I'm juggling between these two files, and there's certain thing, when I move the item, you know, the call out didn't move with it because it's separate from the call out. So, the absolute short answer is it's just simply still best to keep labels in the design file. So even though it is allowed for ref notes, still, like you said, what about when you want to edit? What if you want to change the number? It's bringing these sorts of things up that can be a bit of a pain. And until we can get more ability to kind of link items across drawings, I would love that capability from Autodesk, but we just don't have that. But that being said, oh my gosh, would you look at the time? We have burned through another hour. I hope your brains are bigger from all the knowledge. Thank you guys so much. Remember, you can email us anything. Like Jesse said, we love examples. That always helps. You can always send us any example. It just really helps to appreciate what it is you're asking. And if you have a mock-up of how you like a call out or anything, just send that in to us. We love seeing it. It really, really helps. A picture is worth 1,000 words. A drawing is worth 1,000 pictures, right? So that being said, everyone, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.